Alright. Gosh, that was loud. Hi everyone, thank you so much for being here, and Anupama, thank you so much for being at Prakriti Foundation's event. So, I'm going to start off by saying that, when I came to know that this is only your third book and that your first book was published only in 2015, I was quite stunned because the kind of maturity of your writing suggests that you've been writing for a lot longer. So I'm guessing that although you weren't published before 2015, it's been a very long journey of writing. So could you just start off by taking us through that journey, like right from childhood, when you started writing, when you knew you wanted to do this for life?
Good evening everyone, and thank you so much for being here, and thanks as always to Prakriti for being such supporters of my literary career. All my books in Chennai have been launched at Prakriti here in this very venue, so thanks. And all of you, despite it being over Hindi, you're here. Thanks.
I think we should use this mic already. Whatever sketch I go.
So, Nandini, I'm glad you find my writing mature, and even my first book. So the thing is, even though my first book came out only in 2015, I had been writing much earlier. The book as such came out in 2015, but the poems, I was getting published in journals and anthologies and stuff. But I took my time with putting a book together because, I always used to keep the advice of Dr. Ayappa Panikkar in mind. He was my mentor in Trivandrum, and I was very lucky to meet him, and he introduced me to his poetry circle in Trivandrum and everything. He always encouraged me. He used to tell me, write, keep writing, don't be in a hurry to publish. So I used to write, I used to revise, I used to keep the drafts with me, I used to send them to senior poets for their feedback. And I was very lucky to find some wonderful mentors in people like Jeet, Jeet Kail, Arundhati, Jerry, Randy. They were all very, very encouraging. We used to take time to offer criticism. And then somewhere along the line, they became very close friends as well. The first book happened, that manuscript was in the making for many years. So, and over time there were poems that got dropped, as they should. And that is how 9 happened. And then with the second book, again it took a while. I started writing it while I was on my Charles Wallace Fellowship, and it took 5 years. And it was my first novel, so that took time again. And Girl happened. These are poems which I've written across the last, let's say, between 2017 and now. And last year. So, I've never been in a hurry. Possibly this is the shortest interval between C and Bitterbird, it's out like in 2 years. I don't know about the maturity as such. That is for
it's hard to tell from inside.
That is for the readers to decipher. Yeah, this is how it has happened.
Right, because I think writers often say that they wish they hadn't written their first novel back then, or that I think Manu Joseph gave me some wonderful advice. He said, don't write the novel that you want to write first. Write a novel that doesn't matter so much to you, like the one which is. But I don't think, like in your case, I don't think you could have that regret because
Yes.
You've spent so much time finessing it. Because most people just want their names on the shelves. Was that a dream you had as a child?
No, never. I never thought that I would, seriously, this is not, I'm not trying to be fashionable, but I never ever dreamt that I would become a writer or that I would have books or anything. Yes, I used to enjoy reading, I used to enjoy literature, I always did, I still do. And unlike many of my peers, or when I say peers, I mean in college and school, English was not an afterthought. English literature was not a second choice or a third choice, but it was very much a a decision, a conscious decision. I was very happy to learn it. And even then, when I was discovering the poetry of writers from around the world, I never imagined that one day I would end up writing and publishing poetry. And it's not like I used to write as a child or anything. I wrote my first poem as a teenager. I think I was 14 or 15. And thankfully I can't find that anywhere. I don't think anybody would, I would dread showing it to anybody. Yeah, so I never imagined that. So I don't think I had that ambition at all.
So I think all of us should probably start by hearing this absolutely beautiful poem. Like, it was the first poem I read, first poem in the book. I mean, we'll speak about it once we've heard it. Malayalam.
So this is a poem actually I wrote for my parents. My mother is here, but my father is not here, but she can convey the sentiment. Malayalam, for my parents. I don't remember the first word I heard, but I must have listened to the songs you sang even before the two of you met. Each tune young as your Malayalam, every sound plump and full as the lure falling from your mouths as you called me Mole. Mole, daughter, girl, female. I was me first in your Malayalam, pink as a newborn, young as your Malayalam. Perhaps that was the first word I heard. Every time you went away to sing in faraway lands, you left three sounds behind. Mole. And every time someone called me Mole after that, it reminded me of your voices calling out to me from upstairs. I grow old. There's grey I try to hide. But each time you call me Mole, I'm as young as your Malayalam, tender as Ilamir, soft as Panni, haunting as Pulluvan Pata. Call me Mole, everyone. Daughter, girl, female. I choose to remain young as your Malayalam.
It's such a beautiful oral poem, like so wonderful to hear it. So, I mean, how did you, what made you write this poem?
It is that word. I love being called Mole. I think it makes me feel very young. In our home, my brother and I are never called by our names. We are always called by Mole and Mon. And I picked that up from my parents. So I call my brother also Mon. I don't call him Ala, which is very strange. It is not common actually. But in most other households, this is not very. I mean, parents would call them Mole or Mon, but the name would also creep in occasionally. But here, I've never heard my parents call me Anupama or Anu or anything. It's always Mole. So it's a very sentimental thing for me. I'm very attached to that word. And just like I say in the poem, anytime somebody calls me Mole in Kerala or any Malayali, someone I don't know, an aunt or an uncle or someone stranger, they call me Mole, and I immediately melt and I'm like, okay, I love this person.
So, excuse me. Actually, if my Malayalam is good, I owe it to my father.
Oh, okay.
He was very, very particular that I should study Malayalam. Throughout up to my graduation level, I had Malayalam as my second language.
Yeah. The thing is, she also grew up in Chennai. She also grew up here. But the thing is, I never studied Malayalam. But it was a language we spoke and heard at home. So it was always a language of the home. I would never call it my mother tongue because I don't know why, I would never call it mother tongue, but it's a language of home, it's a language of my roots.
But yeah, no, I don't know, you never said that explicitly in the poem or to me earlier, but then it's somewhere there's a sense of nostalgia where you say maybe just the word mold, and where you say young as your Malayalam, something about that made me feel that although you live in Kerala now and they don't,
It's very ironic.
somewhere it's not, somewhere you feel like you miss the language as having been, and this reminded me of Jeet's Malayalam's ghazal, where he says, his last thing is write a ghazal if you dare in Malayalam. And that's the thing, and he also speaks of how his father read Baudelaire in Malayalam, and there's a sense of disconnect where you have parents who are wonderful at the language, and you have, I don't know why, but for some reason, and because for me also, like my second language is, I don't think of it as my mother tongue. For me, English is my mother tongue, and it's the case with many people in our generation. So I was wondering, the thoughts and the sentiments behind that missing of a language. Could you speak about that a bit?
I see, now that I live in Kerala, I could possibly feel that even in Chennai. I don't feel any disconnect, or I don't feel like I'm missing the language. Possibly the language of home is missing now. But I also translate. I translate from Malayalam. So as far as the literary connect goes, that is pretty strong, because I translate Paul Zagreya mostly from Malayalam to English. So I spend a lot of time with the Shabda Taravali, which is the thesaurus. It's this massive, thesaurus in Malayalam. So it's interesting the kind of nuances I've discovered over the years because of translation, the act of translations. And I started translating because I wanted to get close to Malayalam, the language. I wanted to discover what I had missed out on, and since I did not study the language. But otherwise I don't feel any regret or any sense of loss. I'm very happy that I'm happy that I write in English. I'm happy I express myself mostly in English. I'm happy that I'm writing in English. And this current relationship that I have with Malayalam makes me happy.
Yeah, no, that again is something I can relate to, the learning of a language more deeply, not because it's a language you studied, but because it's a language with which you work in. Basically, you're rewriting someone else's thoughts in English, right? So you're getting to know them intimately. As a writer, you're also thinking about what exactly did this person want to say. So, but I also feel that in some way has lent a musicality to your own writing, or was there always there, or do you feel it's changed since you became a translator?
No, I don't think that has influenced my poetry in any way. If there is any musicality, it is something that has grown with my work as a poet. But translation and my own writing are two separate things. I try not to, interfere with my act of translation, and so it is. These two are very separate. I don't think that has had any effect.
So then, for the title of the collection, Bitter Gourd, let's first speak about your relationship with pavaka.
Well, it's one of my favorite vegetables. I don't know how many of you like. No, you don't. You don't. You love it. You like it. Yeah, I love it. You don't.
I love it.
Oh, yeah, I love it. I love it.
It's a love-hate. No, there's no in between. Like either you love it or you hate it. There's no, you can't be
I
neutral.
love pavaka. I love pavaka fry. I like pavaka teal. I like pavaka in any form. But that is not the reason I call it. So there is the title poem, and I just wanted to kind of, what do I say, make some fun of my own self, which I like to do from time to time. The fact is that this book of poetry is out nearly 10 years after my first, so obviously I've grown older and more bitter perhaps, so bitter like a pavakya, like a bitter gourd. And that's how I wrote that poem. And then I thought it would be nice to kind of call the collection that, because it's that is what I see when I look at the poems in this collection. There's a lot of cynicism, and maybe that's a factor of growing older. I dread to think what I would call it if I were to call my third book, my next book of poems. I don't know what I would call that one.
There must be like some food which is the most bitter yet discovered. You can name it after that.
Should I read that?
Yeah, please.
Bitter girl. A glass of bitterness goes well with age. Get on with it. Drink it every day. Keep your head bowed. Each time the world hits you, survive the blow. Even if justice is served, it will be bitter. It will remind you to lie low.
It's such a lovely poem. Well, you know, it's so different from the thread. It stands out from the thread that runs through the rest of the book, which I think has largely to do with relationships amongst humans more than anything else. And if it's okay, I'd like you to read this poem, Your Hands. And I think given that your mom is in the audience, it might be a good poem to read now.
Yeah, it is about her hands. But anyway. It's a poem I wrote some years ago. It's also a very Chennai poem in many ways. Your hands.
Which page?
Oh, sorry, it's page 54.
54 look like
Your hands. I wouldn't mind being a little girl again, holding your hands, visiting that store in T Nagar. Your hands knew everything back then. To wave reluctantly on my first day at school, surprised I didn't weep seeing you leave. But I must have needed you, because that night you took me to the store, my hands firmly in yours. I was happy in the knowledge of your hands. And when I suddenly couldn't find you, nothing was more terrifying than your lost hands. Your hands knew everything back then. To pack egg noodles and tomato rice for lunch, whip up brain omelets and Scotch eggs, make prawns fry and feed us rice rolled in its spice. They made up for the moments you were in there. You punished me every now and then, but I don't remember much of it. You were a devoted wife, much to my frustration, and seldom stood by me in my angst. But your hands knew everything back then. Collected exquisite kanjivarams for my wedding, picked out my lingerie and my handkerchiefs. Your temper was famous and your moods unpredictable. You weren't a great role model if I wanted to be a mother. But your hands knew everything. Okay, I won't get dinner tonight. But your hands knew everything. We are both older now. You still roam the streets of T Nagar, waiting to choose things for me. Your hands seem to know less these days. But I love their smallness, their rounded ignorance. Someday I will place my hands in yours again and will let go to see if I'm as frightened as back then.
You can come to my place for dinner. I think the reason I think it's one of my favorites is it reminds me of how we never stop being children, you know. For when our parents are around, we are still always those children. We still turn to them for comfort, although we reach a place where sometimes we feel we know more than them. I'm choosing my words carefully. But you feel at times that you're more aware of what's going on, and sometimes you even reach a place where you comfort them, but still you turn to them. And it's this motif of hand-holding, it's something which also runs through your novel C. Of holding hands, of letting go, of hands as a metaphor, of hands as threatening. So I mean, when was that? I just want to know when this poem was written. Do you remember?
This one?
Yeah.
So this one was a commissioned poem, poetry at Sangam.
Right.
They had wanted, they had reached out to some poets and they had wanted to, they wanted a poem. They wanted the poets to write about their mothers. So a few of us had written about our mothers. Srilata, did you also had one from that series? I remember Srilata had one.
I don't remember now.
Okay.
But it seems like I might have.
Yeah, so they reached out and they also wanted a photo of the poet with the mother.
Oh, okay.
So I remember sending one of my mom and I don't know. Okay. So that is how I wrote this
I think
poem.
I read this poem and it's
Okay.
really going to be there. I
Okay.
wondered where I
Right.
So that is like absolutely cutting out the space for fiction where they ask you actually for a picture of yourself with
Yeah.
your mother. Because as a
Yeah.
poet you have that, I mean,
I know.
Yeah, like you know, you have that, that's something Srilata also spoke about at her book launch, that you have to be so honest and you often write about the people you know, the people you love, care about, and it's not, what do I say, I mean, it's not a Hallmark card, you know, poems can't be Hallmark cards. So, I mean, and that's a painful process. So, there's the process of actually writing it and then dealing with the feelings it triggers, and then the process of publishing it, and then the process of being asked about it when your mom's in the room. So, yeah.
So maybe we should quickly move on to
No, another favorite of mine was, I think it's called The House That Your Father Built. Is that what it's called?
Yeah. It's for Shankar.
43.
I like that everyone knows your book better than you do.
Yes. So this makes a reference to the house that we lived in for some years, and the poem is dedicated to Shankar, my husband, and it makes a reference to my father-in-law, who I was very close to, and he supervised the construction of the house. You know? So I've heard lots of stories about how meticulously he did that. And he was a wonderful human being, and he had very bad arthritis. Despite that, his willpower was supreme, and you know, he didn't allow the pain to get in the way of anything. And his knees had literally bent, you know, had bowed because of the arthritis. But still, he would do everything. So I'd heard about all that. So I just imagined that scene, and that is how I wrote this poem. The house your father lived in, for Shankar. We didn't know each other when he chose that door, or when he sat talking to the mason about the ways of the world. Perhaps he stood all day on bowed knees, arthritis ripe in his bones, pointing to the odd brick out of place in the house that was coming to life. I was still in school in another city. But perhaps I knew that decades later I will hear him laugh over a meal, sing his favorite Scottish tunes, or squabble with you over politicians he didn't care for. Bully for you, Daddy. Perhaps I knew that I would find my greatest memories in the house your father lived in.
And now, I mean, the other thing is, you know, these are all clearly subjects for poetry where you have memories, but another striking thing about the collection is that you find poetry in the everyday things, like there's one poem, planning dinner, and then there's a poem about cleaning up.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe you could move on to those. And what was it like? I mean, what was, like, how do you light upon a subject like that and create a poem from it?
So both those poems were written during the pandemic. You know, when obviously all of us were spending a lot of time at home. I think all our time at home, and we were stuck, you know, stuck within the four walls, stuck with our partners, getting on each other's nerves, not being able to go out, you know. So every chore, every act became this complete act of frustration, and there's only so much you can do to yell at the other person. So that is how I wrote both those poems. Both those poems were written around then.
About the Italians.
Sorry?
About the Italians.
Yes.
Yeah. The Italy poem.
Yeah, that was the image that I had also. I was like, yeah, the poem about the Idlis and the fluffy
Yeah.
Idlis.
So I'll read that poem first. It's on page 13. Planning dinner. There's batter in the fridge anyway, enough to last a week for two. Idlis are great, but too cumbersome. Their molds pile, grate in the sink, steel scrubs, screens shrill. Soft mounds turn surly in the end. Idlis are not as easy as you think. Supple, warm, plump. They soak up sambar, only if they ferment, as long as swear words that linger unsaid. Unheard in the tap water, now gushing out loud, loud enough for the neighbors to know it's idlis for dinner. So no idlis tonight. Let's settle for dosha. Let's go round and round. Leave a sizzle here, a dribble there. Crisp enough for you?
That's on page 7, cleaning the house.
Cleaning the house. Saturdays are for cleaning and writing. I begin without map or warning, moving in circles, gathering dust and dirt, a week's cobweb gobbling more than spiders. Sometimes I return to the same spot, sweep under the dining table, pick up nothing. I sprinkle some dust. Floors need footprints. Furniture needs proof of life. So I wipe them clean, except for the coffee mug stains. Spotless is lifeless. I must write too, as ideas settle on the corner coffee table. The broom, the dusting cloth and mop fit beautifully in my hands. Their hold is real. Their hold is real. Much more than words that reveal.
Can you read that poem on page 57? Broken.
Oh gosh.
Oh my goodness.
That's
a visual poem. I don't know if it'll work.
No, I think it's not. Probably, I mean, I would suggest that everyone buy it and buy the book and read the poem, because it's amazing.
It's beautiful.
But reading it out loud, I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why I said it's a very visual poem.
Yeah.
It's written, I mean, if you see it, you'll know what I mean.
Yeah. So,
Would it make sense if I read it? I don't think so.
if it's not meant to be read, I think that's something.
It's meant to be read silently on the page.
Yeah.
You know, if I read it out to you, it would be lost.
Yeah. Because I think that's something which, like it's only when, after more and more interaction with poets, and so often they're very concerned about the alignment of words on the page, how a poem is formatted and things like that. So there's so much. So can you, and they are like, I mean, of course, George Herbert was famous for pattern poetry. There are some people who write in form, and in your case, you do all of the above at different times. Like it's very hard to fit you or your writing into a box. I know it's beautiful. That's the only thing I can say. But it is beautiful in different ways. Like there are some poems which are wonderfully alliterative. There are poems like Malayalam which you have to hear read out, and you have to be able to even hear the lur sound. There are people who can't if they haven't used it. And like there's a poem like this which is a visual poem. So what is it? I mean, like, what is it which kind of, do you resist the boxing, or have you just not found a box?
I have no idea. I mean, it's not at all a conscious decision. But in my first book, the first book of poems, you would find a lot of form, because that was a phase when I was using a lot of form when I was writing poetry. So there are sestinas and there are trioles and and lots of haiku. Writing a sestina is like a punishment, literally, because you're writing a 39-line poem with 6 sestets and 1 tercet. So it's a lot of rules that you need to follow. But I enjoyed that process. There was lots of learning. But I somehow thought that thought was getting sacrificed for form. And now I can't imagine using any form. Somehow I just kind of moved away from it. But it happened organically. I just kind of, maybe as I grew older, that all that kind of went away. This whole thing was a very interesting process. Again, not a conscious form. I just thought, let me try this, how it would be. It figures in C as well.
Yeah.
It's there in
A different version though. Like
Slightly.
Slightly different version of the poem. I think even with C, you worked on it for 5 years, and there are lots of passages there which are wild, like it's like they've been written at one stretch. There's something kind of uncontained about them, but then later when you reflect on it, you see that uncontained nature itself is craft. So there's so much which goes even into making something appear unrestrained. There's so much atmospheric, such an atmospheric quality to the novel. And that's something which strikes me in all your writing, that objects and things which one thinks of as non-living, there's a constant argument about plants, whether they are living creatures or not, but whatever, things, let's say inanimate, things that don't move. You see movement and life in them. So is that would you like to talk a little bit? I think I'm speaking particularly with reference to, you speak about looking outside your window, the floating coffins.
Yes.
So
The floating coffins is a real thing, a very real thing, in the sense I actually imagined seeing floating coffins as a child once when I looked out my window, and I was like, my God, these look like floating coffins. And then I realized, oh, these are just banana leaves, So the whole banana leaf to me, in my mind at that time, appeared to me like so I have a very, weird imagination. But I also have an appetite for the macabre and for anything gruesome. I'm a huge fan of horror fiction, horror cinema. But I also get scared. But I love horror films. My uncle and I share this love. And we watch movies together and we discuss that in great detail. In fact, there's a passage in C where I talk about, narrating ghost stories to little cousins. And
I think this might be a good time to read that out actually before you come back.
Okay, you want to go to C and then come back to Bitter Gourd? Okay,
because
sure.
Since some of the poems in Bitter Gourd are from C, I feel the two kind of talk to each other a lot. Also, you were writing these poems even as you were finessing the novel.
Yeah, that is true. Okay, now I just need to find that.
7th or 8th page,
In C?
I think.
No, it's much. I think it's the 50th.
No, I'm not too sure.
Got it.
28 page, No, I'll find it in your PDF.
I have it here. You got it, I got it. Yeah. Okay. So this is from C. Of course, this is not poetry, this is prose. Windows are my friends. They bring out the best, but also the worst in me. They fire up my imagination just as they throw me out of gear. They remain a channel, a connection, a conduit for raw energies flowing into me. Whenever I am by a window, I see something beyond what catches my eye. Back home, while on a train, I like to rest my face against the window's iron bars and watch the whirring medley of lines form as light flashes past houses, trees and people. If it is night and I can see nothing, I imagine shapes. A vision that stays with me is what I saw once from my bed as a child. From the top of my bunk bed, I got a vivid view of the world outside. There were banana, coconut and mango trees growing in our backyard. One evening, I was lying in bed and looking out rather lazily when something caught my eye. Floating coffins. There they were, sailing along eerily, one after the other in a solemn caravan. I nearly screamed till I realized they were nothing more than banana leaves.
And then you follow this up with how you used, not
Yeah,
you, the character. You used that song. Maybe you did that in real life, I don't know.
I did. I used to enjoy narrating, horror stories to little cousins when I went to Kerala on vacation. They would all sit around me and I would make these little sound effects, the door creaking, the door opening, all the and I used to do that. I used to enjoy it.
But the paragraph which follows about how that it's a sort of darker side to the fun side. I think just from there no, perhaps I wanted just from there till the end. I think the beautiful horrors.
Okay. Everything that terrified me, every dead and undead creature that galloped towards me as a nightmare, every little story I had consumed till then would take the shape of a new tale as I retold it to little cousins rapt with attention. Perhaps I wanted to scare them. Maybe I wanted them to be as frightened as I was sometimes. Perhaps I had also hoped no one would console and comfort them if they were to have nightmares, just as no one did when I had mine. Flying coffins, vampires, blood-sucking monsters, possessed houses and parallel worlds. They all lived unhappily in my mind. They continue to, in some scrambled corner, refusing to escape my appetite for night and its beautiful horrors.
This, I think this is something which I personally learned from the Russians, that they look at emotions that we don't easily admit to. When I read, let's say, Crime and Punishment, there's this one particular thing which Dostoevsky says about how when you hear of an accident, everyone feels this moment of excitement and happiness almost, like, oh, something's happened. And all of us say, no, that's not what I feel. And it's a similar thing, for some time with the fun Akka, who's like a fun Chechi, who's relating these things. But then there's a sudden, this character sitting where she's sitting also, sitting in a sea without sun, is thinking of the darker aspects of what she might have done. And as a writer, putting it out there, like I said, there's that process of putting it out, then there's the process of getting it published and reading it out and being asked about it. Maybe my question is, how do you deal with it? Like the honesty that one needs in order, the severity, perhaps even over-honesty. It's almost like we look at the ugliest aspects of ourselves. How do you deal with that?
No, the interesting thing is when you start discussing it and then suddenly you're distancing yourself from all of it. And it's like, did I write that? And if I did, I'm now clinically analyzing it. So I think it's interesting to discuss it, and no matter how honestly you are portraying some ugliness inside you, for some reason the reader at some level has related to it. So I think there comes the success, and as long as it succeeds and as long as somebody can relate to it, I think it's okay. It's okay to be a fool.
Yeah, I think that's where the beauty also comes in, this ability to actually look at oneself in such a stark way. I mean, not just oneself, but our characters whom we love more than we love ourselves also, right? So to look at that aspect of a character and still love that character and still do one's best, And I think, yeah, there's another passage in C where you speak of how much a poem takes out of you, and I think in the context of bitter gourd, I think that might be a fitting passage to read. Would you like me to find the page number?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I think each time I write a poem.
Yeah.
Okay. So, in this novel I combine prose and poetry. So I'll read the poem to set the context and then I'll read the passage. My dearest, I know you won't forget me. I know I will haunt you the way soil haunts the sapling. You will remember my small face, my eyes, my smile, my full mouth, my breasts, my stomach, my thighs, wherever you go. You are not a poet, but you will write the best lines in your daily journal. You will remember my love. Even if you forget, you will remember my love. You will remember, I am blessed. You will remember, you are cursed. Each time I write him a poem, I expect something extraordinary. Each poem is a part of me, and I demand something from him in return. A grand gesture, an expression of intense passion, a promise, a demonstration of commitment. All this when he did not want that poem in the first place, when he asked for nothing. Yet I give, expect, and then stand, head stooped in disappointment. Every time I write him a poem and he fails to notice it, it's like I'm lying on the operating table with bits of my body missing. It's as if there are holes and poems are falling through them.
And the next line is, poems like memories need to be reflected on, read, observed, savored, killed, and brought back to life when the time is right. And that really is what you're doing every time you bring out a collection of poetry. And a lot of bitter gourd, to get back to bitter gourd, is about relationships, and it's not always the happy side of relationships. It's a lot about loss, about letting go. So yeah, maybe we could hear some of them and anything you'd like to say about them, because like we've discussed, poetry comes from a deeply personal space. So I think what you want to share is what you want to share.
So I'll read a couple of poems back. This is on page 55. The same page. I was never good at finishing a page. Somehow I've made it to the last paragraph. On my way, I passed a few unfinished sentences meant to be completed by you. Or was it by me? I don't remember. These days we hardly talk. And when we do, you don't notice, you don't remember. I've made it to the last paragraph. You're in that unfinished line, somewhere on the last page. Or is it the next one? I don't remember. We leave each other's sentences on different pages in a book that isn't meant to be. We leave behind our pages in different books about a life that isn't to be. Page 47. Our white noise. I wait for you a long time. At last you call. You say nothing. You speak of no one. We hear each other breathe, heavy as nightfall. If no news is good news, if in silence we must love, I choose the bad over good. I choose not to love.
Yeah, I guess anything you'd like to say about those poems?
I don't know if I want to talk about it, but basically, I think the different shades of love, and I think everybody experiences them at some point. And as you grow older, what you expected and what is, expectations versus reality, the silences and what you read into them. Yeah.
Like for me, one of the really visceral aspects of sea was this exact thing, this thing of ways of loving, and how there are so many. It's almost like, and I don't want to give much away but the lines are so beautiful. I'm torn between asking you to read them and leaving it on page 13 and 14 of C, where you speak about, going back to C, where you speak about the narrator is looking at her feet and then looking at her hands.
Okay.
Yeah. And then about what that leads to, the thoughts that leads to, yeah.
Okay. Reticent waves, soothing beaches, distant seas I've only read about with names as beautiful as the Black or the Red Sea. Water in one form or the other, oceans, seas, lakes and rivers, lends its language to me to describe him. Deep, difficult to gauge, easy to get lost in, easy to admire. They are easy metaphors, lazy images if you ask me. I must think of other ways to describe his nature. As I reflect on my chosen vocabulary for him, I look down at my feet. I like them. Soft, symmetrical and pretty. My hands, on the other hand, are a different story. Small but rough, wrinkled and strong. Love, the way I express it, has always been like my hands. I only know how to love in an overbearing and overpowering way. Even when I express my affection for animals, I scare them away with my all-consuming love for them. With humans, it's even worse. I know not tender and gentle ways. I'm unfamiliar with letting the soft feather land wherever it pleases, or watching the wonderful colors of a soap bubble from afar. I have to touch and feel it, mostly killing the flow instantly. Mine's a kind of extremist love that deprives the freedom of the beloved.
It's such a beautiful passage, and it was just, we often speak about cats and dogs and how they show love in different ways, and this just reminded me of that, because I'm sure like you have a cat, right? So, and you've known a lot of dogs in your life.
Yes.
So it's like, as we know, they often don't stick to protocol. Like, there are dogs which behave like cats as opposed to, and cats which behave like puppies. And I guess we also, even when we know that we should be the aloof cat, we tend to behave like puppies sometimes. And this passage reminded me of that. So I think the Siddhartha poems in Bitter Gourd, I found them very striking. And ironically, the window poems are not in Bitter Gourd, although the cover has windows. You want to speak a little bit about the cover?
The designer chose very well. And even though I don't have a window series in this book, but windows have always found a way to, way into my writing. In C, there's an entire series called the Window Poems. But I've always enjoyed large windows, and I think they are also beautiful metaphors. There's a lot you can read into them, and I've written about them. It's also, most of us like to have the window seat, they make us comfortable, and you get to see what's happening outside. They make you less claustrophobic. But I didn't have anything to do with the cover subside. It was the designer, so thanks to the publisher and his team. The Siddhartha series is something I wrote many years ago. I think in 2016 or something. So it's there are I think how many days? Day 7 or something. There are each poem is a reflection on a day. It's like a week, you know, and they're all supposed to be dedicated to Siddhartha. I'll probably read a couple, and then we'll talk about it. The Siddhartha series. It's on page 50. Day 1. I picked the right font for you. Trebuchet. Rounded. French. Mature. Not a frivolous Calibri or a cynical Arial. What will this font do? Shape a certain absence? Fill the page with words from what's playing in this room? If you are the desert, I'll be the sea. If you ever hunger for me. Or will it let go of metaphors of desire, which you're asking me to abandon? Perhaps someday I will. But tonight, Trebuchet is my friend. She writes a few lines, burns in my flame. Siddhartha, only you can put it out.
Before you go on to the next one, we have to talk about George Michael.
Absolutely. I think for those of us in this, my generation, George Michael was and remains an institution. So I grew up listening to his songs. I was crazy about him. I still am. And I think his music was just amazing. And the lyrics were sheer poetry.
Yeah.
This particular song, Father Figure, means a lot to me. So, even now I listen to it, and I'm very moved by that song. So, I think we were what, 13, 12, I don't know. So we used to, 9th standard, yeah. So we were all fans of George Michael's, you know.
Where were you when I was growing up? I was alone.
So she immediately recognized it because we used to talk about him, and you know, and anyway, he was such a loss.
Those are
He
the
died
times
so
when
young.
we didn't have the lyrics, right?
Yeah.
So we used to
Listen and
to each
talk
line
about
and
it.
write it, and then we used to compare. Is this what you got? Is this what you got?
So is this what he actually said? Is this what he sang? We don't know. So, but it was amazing. That album itself was amazing.
Was it during the
Yeah.
Vine days?
Anyway.
John,
Yeah, so
this is
I
after
had to kind of make a reference to it, and I'm so glad that George Michael is somehow a part of this poem, and he's because he is an important part of my life. His poetry his music meant a lot.
It is poetry. I mean,
It is poetry.
his own
poetry.
his own writing. It is poetry with Jesus to a Child.
Oh my
all
God,
of those.
Jesus to a Child is just amazing. But everything. Yeah. I'm glad you know, Nandini immediately picked out. So yesterday she said, we have to talk about George Michael dedication. I said, I'm so glad you noticed it.
Because I you know, when I was like, if you're the person, I'll be this year, I was like, I started hearing it in song, and then I was like, and then they're like, even that, right? And then I played Father Figure on loop for like half an hour after that, and then got back to your
Such a
poetry.
beautiful song it is.
Yeah, and this is the other thing I was saying about the lyrics, right? I didn't realize until I read it that it was if you are the desert, I'll be the sea. I don't remember now what I thought it was.
But back then, I don't know, all of us did it, I think. If we loved the song a lot, we would just make up some word just to fill the gap so that we can sing the tune.
Yeah, because even they used to switch accents between British and American, like George Michael himself. So you never knew.
Yeah, and accents were very hard for us to
Very
follow back
difficult
then.
to follow.
We were not
Yeah.
exposed to.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, so I always thought, if you have a hunger for me. And I was like, finish the sentence, and then finally Anupama, whether she's right or wrong, has given me closure 25 years later. So yeah. No, so I mean, and you know that whole poem, the video, there's so much passion in it, and this it somehow carries through to this poem also, day one. I mean, the passion of a father figure. So yeah, and this thing of burns in my flame, Siddhartha, only you might as well have said George, only you can put it. But yeah, no, but why is George Michael part of this poem specifically? Or why is this song? Do you remember?
I think the song was, to be honest, I don't remember, but I think the song was playing in the other room, or it was there in the background when I wrote the poem. So I always had the habit of music playing in the room when I'm working. Even when I studied for exams as a student, I always had music in the background. So that could be the reason, is what I'm thinking.
Okay. Any other poem from the series that...
Maybe the last one in the series. It's called Hiatus 53. So this is day 7, but I decided to call it Hiatus. Absence of words is not absence of emotion. Anger, hate, disquiet. Page fills with words that seek meaning. Hiatus seek meaning. Fingers shrivel at every syllable. This voice isn't mine. Siddhartha, I'm lost. Seek the truth, they said. Count your blessings, they said. They think they're wise. But Siddhartha, I know no truth except yours. I reject blessings. This is me, Siddhartha, in my complete madness.
This was not a commission series, or was it? Okay.
No. I have no idea where I wrote it or how I wrote it, but this was first published in Donors.
Right.
Yeah, and but it was not commissioned.
Because it's, I mean, I like that you didn't have a day 7, and it's about, to me it's almost about, kind of, okay, wait, breaking a pattern or whatever it is, and then somehow it contextualizes the whole process of writing, where you have all this planned out, and then suddenly one day there's nothing. Yeah. And that's something you speak about I think in C, where you speak about finishing a page.
Yes.
Not how you like. No, that's a different poem. But in C, how you like to have a few lines on the page.
Okay.
And I'm afraid I don't remember which page I found this on. But yeah, no. But as a writer, like, is there that there are people who speak about how blank pages frighten them, how sometimes you do these little exercises to get writing, or actually writing physically versus writing on the computer, that sort of thing. So are there any little things that you like to do?
There was a time when I used to jot down ideas on a small notepad, which I always carried with me. But that was many years ago. Now the phone has taken its place. So when suddenly an idea strikes me, or a word that comes to me which I want to develop into a poem or something, I immediately make note of it on my phone, and then I revisit it later. But writing physically, no, this hasn't happened at all. And somehow it's always on my laptop. This is why I carry it everywhere I go. When I travel, it's always with me, because you never know when inspiration will strike. But this thing of the blank page, it's really it's an easy excuse of a lazy writer. And you just have to write, because it is work. You just have to write. It depends on how serious you are about your vocation. And I'll always remember what Jerry said, Jerry Pinto. Somebody at some festival had asked him, what happens when you get a writer's block? So he said, how would you like it if your maid turned up today and said, oh, I have a maid's block? Would you forgive her? No, right? So similarly, this is what you do. You just have to write. So even if it is just taking 5 minutes to put down 5 sentences or 1 sentence, you've done something for the day. and then go back to it. It may not be your best, but you've written.
Right. On that note, I'll stop being greedy and open up the floor to questions. There's someone who showed us an entire list of questions and said, just a few. So maybe we should start with you since I know you have questions, Bruce.
It's now since you were mentioning writers block. No, it's fine. I'm loud enough.
No, it's okay.
I'm good. I'm good.
I'll hand it round.
Okay, this has nothing to do with the book. Like you were mentioning writer's block. In the words of Pinto, he said, if your mate turns up and says, I have mate's block, but that is absolutely nothing connected to creativity. Getting back to reality, how do you deal with writer's block? It's something serious.
It is, yeah.
So how do you cope with it?
So this is what I do. I open the file and I try and write at least a sentence. If I'm not at my best that day, see, if I'm inspired and if I have ideas, then I might be able to write 2 paras if I'm writing prose. If I'm writing a poem, I might write about 3 lines or so. And then I stop and then I go back to it. But I don't close, I write at least a word so that I know that I've done something. Because you have to overcome it, there are no shortcuts.
Lovely. Now coming back to your book, Rorem, Mirror.
Okay.
So I got it on the first time I glanced at the word, I knew it was that. So naturally, English is read from left to right. Okay. So when I seen the word Rorem, my mind told me it's mirror. Now the last punctuation should be the starting of the poem, right? But the full stop was at the end of the poem, which is grammatically incorrect. So what made you do that? is it like too crude or something? Whatever. It's
started with the full stop, right?
I think
It starts with the full stop.
It does not start with full stop.
Yeah, no. Meaning the poem, what he means is it should have been at the beginning.
Yeah, right.
But it's not. Instead, it's at the end. I wanted.
It's regular.
Yeah, I wanted. So if you look at it at the end of every sentence, the full stop is right there.
Okay, but technically speaking, it should start with the full stop because it's the end of the
Technically
sentence.
speaking. But what I'm saying is, as far as punctuation goes, I can follow the inverse rule.
Okay.
So every sentence is broken with the period at the right point.
Wonderful.
The clue comes with the capital letter indicating that the new thing is starting. Not capital letter, yeah.
Okay.
No, but you see, it's not like there's a similar poem in C where
is
the
different.
punctuation is
Yes.
aligned with how it should be, like
Exactly.
you said, and it's very disorientating. It's like
It is, but that's the idea of it.
Yeah.
Probably. I thought it would be a giveaway if you start with a full stop, then people will know it's.
But even otherwise, you know, right, that this is.
The thing is,
not as easily.
I can read and write backwards, literally read and write sentences backwards. So for me, this was cakewalk to read. So it was on. And one more thing, you have a couple of sonnets. How do you work on your sonnets?
Sonnets?
Yeah.
No.
Not in this one. I
That's
think
what-
it means
There
your
are-
first
no, there's-
9.
9.
Yeah.
My first book, no, even in my first book,
no.
not really.
You have
I didn't write sonnets.
14s.
Which one?
14 lines.
Who's the author?
14. Your poems of 14 lines.
From which book?
There are like 2 or 3. Is it intended?
I haven't
that way?
used any form
Okay.
in any poem in this collection. So if you find a structure, it's quite coincidental. I didn't use any conscious.
I thought they were like.
No, I
meant to be
haven't
that
used
way.
any form. No. So if you look at my first book of poems, 9, there were a lot of forms, like I mentioned. There was sestina, something called sestina,
Groups
trio
of
lay.
6, and then.
That is sestina.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Then there was of course haiku. Then there were trio lays, which is a 8-line poem. But it's not just the lines, right? It also follows a very complicated rhyme and repetition pattern. But this one doesn't have any such things.
Okay.
Meaning no forms chosen.
I think it's also that these forms, the specific forms which you're talking about, many of them originated in Europe, with Italian or French,
French, yeah.
where the grammar itself allows you to rhyme without it sounding stilted. Which I think even Hindi or even Malayalam might, like there are words which end in the same way because of the grammar, right, with an ER ending for instance, or an INO ending in Italian. Whereas when English, when you try to bend it, have you struggled with that while writing in form? Struggling to bend English to the rules set in a form that does not belong to
So
English?
what I used to do when I was using form was, I didn't do that too much. I thought I'm going to use the form, but I'm also going to be a little liberal and not, bend the rules of English, because that would be very odd, right? It's like killing one language and the form at the same time. So I don't think I did that. But it was also in that time, that period, 2000s, early 2000s, a lot of English poets, poets in India writing in English were using form.
Jeet also,
Jeet,
Ranjit as well.
Ranjit, Kartika, we were all using this particular. But I think everybody is now moved away from that. I don't see them writing in form either.
I know, just one more. See, like most of what I wanted to ask was already covered.
Oh, sorry.
So there's just one more thing. Just a second. Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The human fights. So there's a little fun in that. Was it a fun thing, a fun thing, or what was it?
No, it's a very angry poem actually, because there are political poems also in this collection. My response to what's happening in the country, especially, and a lot of us are aware of what's happening in the country. So that was one such response, and obviously I wanted to play on the word rights, because
Exactly.
who has rights these days, So that is why.
That's good. That's pretty gutsy of you. Anyway, I think I'm done.
Honestly, I have
Cool.
a more
You can
general
use
question. Sort of a general question. Do you find that you let yourself be led by the logic, like sort of the Greek logic of the poem, if I use the phrase? You tend to do that more than you tend to say, look, I'm going to write about this, or I'm writing about this. So there is a certain control to that. No? There's a certain thematic analysis which you begin and you go through the poem. So which kind of poet are you?
I think it is the second one. I want to write about this, and then the theme decides and defines everything for me. The structure comes in later, and my attempt is to be original, if possible. I think for most of us that is the struggle, because themes are not new. Like most of us have written about these themes for years. But how do you write about it in an interesting way?
So what would you sort of invite into the poem? Like, she just mentioned, you spoke about the George Michael lines. For instance, so that sort of just has popped into the poem in a way, because maybe it was there in your head, or you were listening to it, or so part of it as a child, as a younger person. But what other sorts of such elements do you allow into the poem?
Definitely objects, everyday things, things which are around me. A comb, a set of keys, shoes, things which are familiar, which I think can be interesting metaphors or unusual metaphors of love, of abuse, or anything. Like there is a poem called Krishnan. So that's a poem that deals with the subject of rape, but it talks about conditioner, air conditioner. So the other thing I try to do is, when I'm talking about strong themes, I try not to be sentimental about it at all. Because I think that, in my view, for me, it ruins my poetry. So I try to be as clinical about it as possible. And Conditioner is a classic example of that. I wanted to be hard-hitting, and at the same time, I wanted to convey the theme in all its seriousness. Sometimes I also am very, very tongue-in-cheek, try to be.
The change in theme from the earlier, the book 9 to this, was it a conscious shift or?
I think it's a result of growing older. So that one came out in 2015. Those were poems written before that. Poems written in my 20s, in my 30s, and the book came out when I was 40. So now I'll be 49 next month. So one distinction between that and this, there are many more external poems in this one. When I say external, what I mean is poems about the country, responses to what's happening in the world, in the country, especially political poems.
Yeah.
There are many more of this than I
Yeah,
think.
that is.
That was something you were midway through answering that, and I hijacked you to read from C. But you're talking about the objects, like you're talking about the objects, and you're seeing poetry in things that don't move. Actually, like I think, the way they slip into, and this is something I've noticed in several of your poems, not published here, published online as well. How objects become animate.
Yeah, I think perhaps that is an interesting way of making your work original, maybe, you know. So, a cup which meant something to you could mean something entirely different to me.
Yeah.
Maybe that is where a poem can become interesting.
Yeah.
One example of objects being animated, the traveling thing, sharp objects.
Oh
The
yeah.
last line said,
Yeah,
this
that is
me-
actually a response to something that happened to me on an Emirates
I
flight.
knew it.
Yeah,
I
an
missed
Emirates
it.
flight.
Yeah.
And I was so angry about it because I didn't do anything about it. All I did was I reported that passenger to the crew, and they were very nice about it. They immediately took me away to another seat. They brought me water to drink. They calmed me down, blah blah blah. But I was so angry, and I just wanted to do something. All I did was, I complained. I made a complaint, and they said they're blacklisting him for life.
Wonderful.
But that doesn't make that wasn't enough, and I wrote this poem. Even now I feel, if something now I know, if something happens, I want to do something about it. I want to report them, I want to go to the cops, it doesn't matter, I'll go to court, but I'm not going to sit quietly and stop with writing a poem.
Wonderful.
It's so strange that when I read the poem, I thought you were talking about being that security check. Because that's the case when you can't do
So
anything.
that's the reason I call it sharp objects not allowed.
Yeah, so I thought this is so that sharp up, they're searching you, right? And that's the most helpless you feel because you're absolutely powerless. Some stranger who's wearing a badge is authorized to touch you wherever he or she wants, and you can't do anything about it if you want to get on board. So that's the thing. It's weird.
No, this
weird
was a
how-
passenger sitting next to me.
no, now I know. But it's strange how you wrote a poem with a completely different intent and I read it completely differently
I
from.
got it good. And one more thing. Personally, you prefer poetic license or ambiguity? What do you trip on?
Well, I don't enjoy being intentionally ambiguous because at the end of the day, the reader should, I think, be able to relate to what you're writing. If you're completely lost on them, then I think the book is a failure. So I don't intend to be ambiguous, but if I am ambiguous, well, I apologize. But I also hope there are layers which the reader will discover in time.
So these poems are more direct than the poems at night. I mean, more direct means more conversational and more, yeah.
I don't know. It depends on how the reader perceives them. Depends on how the reader perceives them. Well, again, not a conscious choice.
Yeah, that's
So for what I've seen, you literally touched on every single topic, like even nature also, the four elements of nature talking to each other about, I think the window, what is the color of light and darkness, something. So there I see all the elements of nature, whatever, like you kind of animated, like as you said, all the inanimate things. So what next? You've covered every single topic or whatever. So what is there?
Are
No
you saying I
stone.
should stop?
No stone unturned. As of now, I read every single thing, latest books of yours, and I found like very vast, very diverse way of writing. So we can't box you into like this is your style, this is not your style, because you've covered.
Even within the
it's
same
crazy.
book, right?
It's
Yeah.
crazy. It covers every single thing. So what is your next project gonna be like? Are you going to get into romantic stuff or like? No. What's on your mind like next? Or are you just going to let your thought process?
So I'm halfway through, not halfway through, I'm writing my next novel, which I think should be very different from my last novel. So I'm writing my next novel. And then poems are being written. One of this will come out in the next couple of years, and you can tell me how that is from this, whether that can be boxed or triangled or whatever. But I don't know. Honestly, I'm not sure, right? See, if all you need to do is pause and look around you, there are always things to write about. And I don't think you can ever exhaust. As long as we live, as long as there's life around you, there's always something to write about. And as long as you're living, you're experiencing things, you're experiencing emotions, people are around you, you're in relationships, you are feeling things. How can you stop writing about what you could know about? Your methods of approaching that subject would change, but the theme can remain universal.
Is there a day for poetry and is there a day for prose?
No. No, not at all. Definitely poetry.
So you'll be writing your prose and then the poetry will come.
So whatever I have to write depends on the deadlines, depending on what I need to finish first. So the novel, unfortunately, my editor and publisher, they've given me time. They're like, take your time, write, and share it with us when you're satisfied. Which is a problem because I am someone who works well with deadlines. Poems. As and when an idea strikes me, I just sit down and it's usually over in a couple of hours, it's done, and I immediately send the first draft to my uncle. And if he doesn't give me feedback, I badger him till he gives me feedback. So, yeah. But there are no separate days. But prose demands a different kind of discipline, and I'm enjoying that process too. Prose is more difficult for me, which is why it demands a different kind of discipline. A lot of people might disagree. They might think that poetry is difficult, but not for me. Prose, the language has to flow naturally. The dialogue, when you're writing fiction, dialogue has to come in. The plot has to make sense. C was a very abstract book, but the next one is not. So it has to. I don't know. Let's see how that comes along.
Yeah, I've always thought it was non-fiction is easiest in this fiction, then there's poetry which you have to be really gutsy to. But I mean, just, since you've been writing, since your teens, you've been writing poetry, at what point did you decide, did you feel emboldened enough to, yeah.
I was very lucky. My first publication, my first poem was to be published was in the Little magazine.
Okay.
And somehow I was always very choosy about who would publish me. I never sent it to any magazine or anything. So even before 9, my first book came out. I had been published in very prestigious journals like the Little magazine, which was being edited by Antara Devsen, and Indian literature, Sahitya Academy's Indian literature. Those days, Caravan had a nice, literary section which I missed dearly.
Fiction.
Outlook. They all had. Then of course, there was a time when even Hindu Sunday magazine used to publish poetry. Very
Some yeah.
Occasionally they used to. Anyway, sorry, what was the question?
No, when did you feel emboldened enough to kind of publish?
Yeah, I think, I don't know, I used to read Little magazine and I really liked their issues and I just sent this to them on a whim. And I was so surprised that they published it in their Ghosts issue because this poem was about our Taravad, our maternal ancestral house. and it's called House of Dreams. So they included it in their ghosts issue. It's about things which are no longer alive.
Right.
So I was I was moved. I was so thrilled that they saw promise in it, and I was still very young. And I re-established contact with Antara, who published me first, and she's a real darling. And yeah, so somehow I just thought that maybe this poem might find a home, and that's how that happened. Okay.
Any questions? No. From the uncle who receives poems at 3 a.m.
Do you have any soliloquies in your collection?
All of these are, no?
Do you have anything else? You have anything else in your collection?
In this collection, or you mean other poems?
Yet to come.
Yeah. There are other poems, newer poems which I'm collecting that will come out in another book.
Because in between you touch on third person perspective, but mostly it's like you.
No, it's not. When I say I, it's not me.
Oh.
It could be poetry written in the first person. It's not necessarily Anupama.
Yeah. I got it.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Nandini. Thank you for the conversation.
Thank you for the poems and for the writing. Like I said, when you said, right, that you feel gratified when you can relate, when someone can relate to it. And I think when someone writes what you feel, that's another kind of gratification from the reader's point of view. And I think several of us feel that. So thank you everyone for being here. Anupama's books, all of them, I think 9 is not, but C and Bittergourd are available there. You can buy them.
Bittergourd is available with a nice discount.